circulated last time. So be ready to unmute your microphones so that you can let me know if you're here. All right, so Vince Perez is the chair. I guess he hasn't logged in.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Thank you. All right. Mayor Margot?
Here.
Here. Mayor Antonio Araujo? Jay Banasiak?
Here.
Thank you. Cesar Blanco?
Here.
Joseph Cervantes? No. Okay. Trent Doolittle?
Here.
Art Fierro? Okay. Mary Gonzalez?
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Tommy Gonzalez?
Here.
Great, thank you. Raimundo Lara?
Here.
Right. Manuel Leo? Mayor Leos? Okay. Susie Lizárraga? Okay.
Me.
Representative Lizárraga?
Here.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Monica Lombraña?
Present.
Chuck McMahon? I thought I saw Chuck. Okay. Sam Rodriguez? Sam Rodriguez, are you there? Okay. We'll get back. Walter Miller?
Here.
Joe Moody?
Here.
Thank you. Sam Morgan? Sam Morgan? Esteban Olivas? I'm sorry, Esteban Olivas? No. Lina Ortega?
Here.
Thank you. Norma Palacios?
Here.
Thank you. Javier Perea?
Present.
Great. Henry Rivera? Henry Rivera? Okay. Jose Rodriguez? Senator Rodriguez? Okay. Rene Rodriguez?
Here.
Thank you. Benjamin Romero?
Here.
Ricardo Samaniego?
Here.
Tomás Treviño? Sorry, Tomás, are you there? Okay. And Diana Trujillo?
Tengo que estar en todo.
Here.
Excellent. Great. So we have, excellent, we have a definitely quorum, and the only absences I have are Antonio Araujo, Joseph Cervantes, Art Fierro, Manuel Leos, Chuck McMahon. Are you there? I thought I saw you in there.
Eduardo Calvo.
Okay, and Sam Rodriguez.
Del George.
Okay. Okay.
Well, with the quorum, the time is 9:08. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is Friday, April 17th. This is a meeting of the Transportation Policy. Yeah, a couple of notes before we begin. We have some folks who are on the WebEx, and then we have some folks who are calling in. If everybody could just be sure that they're whether you're on WebEx or whether you're particularly if you're calling in, if your phone could just if you could mute your telephone, so we can avoid any feedback issues. Secondly, for this meeting, what we're going to do, since it's all being there's none of us at the MPO facility, Or if you'd like to speak for this meeting on any of the agenda items, so this goes for all TPB members, can you please call or send a text to 915-373-1013. Again, that number is 915-373-1013. If you'd like to speak, if you could please just identify yourself and your name will go into a queue. So that way we can have some order when it comes to speaking on various agenda items. That clear? Okay. Today we have a new TPB member joining us from the city of El Paso. We have Mr. Sam Rodriguez from the city of El Paso. I don't know if he's online, but he is replacing Ted Marcus, who retired. Apparently,
Yes.
we weren't invited to the retirement party, but congratulations to Mr. Marcus on his retirement, and we welcome Mr. Sam Rodriguez.
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, welcome. Okay, so with the conditions with COVID-19, pursuant to any actions or pursuant to recent actions taken by the Texas Governor Greg Abbott that suspend certain open meeting requirements, the El Paso MPO Transportation Policy Board meeting scheduled for April 17th, 2020 will be conducted telephonically and by video teleconference. Okay. We've already done, we've already called the meeting order, we've already had roll call, open comment period. Marisol, do we have anybody who was called in to speak? ¿No?
La chavita Marino salió a sacar al perro, yo creo.
Somebody's on. Somebody is not muted on their system. I don't know which TV member or members of the public has that.
I think it's a member of the public whose first name starts with Robert.
Okay.
Great. I think they're muted now. Thank you.
Okay, so Marisol, do we have any members of the public who had indicated previously that they wish to speak?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the first item. The first item is discussion and action to approve the minutes from the March 27th, 2020 TPB meeting.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay.
Second, Representative Rodriguez.
Okay. And who was the initial motion by?
Mayor Perez.
Okay. So we have a motion in a second.
Mr. Chair, before you go there,
yes.
This is Eduardo. Just one clarification or adjustment to the minutes as they were posted. We noticed that Tommy Gonzalez appeared as absent, but he was present to the meeting, so we will make that adjustment. Or we have made the adjustment. But it's something that was posted with that mistake.
Good morning. This is Senator Rodriguez joining the meeting.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Mr. Chair, this is also Representative Rivera joining the meeting.
Good morning. Okay, so with those amendments, who made the motion and the second, do you amend the motion and the second to reflect those changes?
Motion.
No amendments. This is how it would pass.
Okay. All right. So just as we did in prior meetings, rather than having to do a roll call with everybody, I'm just going to ask if there's any members of the TPB who oppose this item. Are there any members who abstain? Hearing none, the item passes. Okay, Eduardo, next item.
Chairman Perez, this is Greg McNichol. I'm going to suggest that as you get to item number 2, we're going to take these in groups, if that's okay. We'll address the first 3 are County of El Paso items. The next 3 would be Sun Metro. This is the same format we took in our meeting with the TPAC, and I found it efficient and would recommend it to y'all.
Okay.
All right. So with that said, item number 2 is amend the Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the Destino 2019 to 2023 Transportation Improvement Program to A, program the Regional Transit Startup Assistance for fiscal year 21 project with limits of countywide in fiscal year 2021. B, program the Regional Transit Startup Assistance for fiscal year 22 project with limits of countywide in fiscal year 2022. And C, program the Regional Transit Startup Assistance for fiscal year 23 project with limits of countywide in fiscal year 2023.
Good morning, Greg McNichol, TPAC Chair. As stated, these 3 items are all tied to the new Regional Transit Startup Program in the following years, fiscal year 21, 22, and 23. This was presented to us, and we recommend it to you all for approval.
Okay. Eduardo, is there any further comment from staff on this item?
No, as you all know, the Regional Transit project that is sponsored by the County of El Paso is one of the projects identified in the Regional Mobility Strategy 2020. So I should say that a lot of the what you're going to see here in item number 2 are driven by RMS 2020. In other words, we are beginning to program to do the necessary programming of funding and all that to follow the strategy laid out in RMS 2020. So again, A, B, and C are part of the regional the county's rural transit system.
Move to approve.
Second, Palacios.
Okay. There's a motion by Representative Ortega and second by Palacios.
Excuse me, Chair. This is Sergio Estrada.
Yes.
So now, can we please just check with Marisol to see if there are any members of the public signed up to speak on action item number 2?
Sure. Marisol?
No members.
Thank you.
And so this is to approve items A, B, and C, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with the motion and the second, are there any members who do not approve of the items A, B, and C? Are there any members who abstain? Okay. Without hearing any objections, the items pass. Next item.
Okay, so we're going to take D, E, and F together. So D is reprogram the Montana Rapid Transit System first year operating assistance project with limits from downtown terminal Santa Fe to Far East Terminal, RCPO, and Edgemere from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022. E, reprogram the Montana RTS second year operating assistance project with limits from downtown terminal Santa Fe to Far East Terminal, RCPO, and Edgemere from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23. And F, reprogram the Montana RTS third year operating assistance project with limits from downtown terminal Santa Fe to Far East Terminal, RCPO, and Edgemere from fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2024. Greg?
Good morning, Greg McNichol, Chairman of the TPAC. This item is, again, these 3 items are obviously tied together. It's putting the project in alignment with its construction schedule. And I'm and this with these, it's been recommended to y'all for approval. And I'll look for Sun Metro if you've got any other further questions related to reasons why it's changing years.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
This is Jay Benashik from Sun Metro, and we finally got our grant approved. And so now are awarded. So now we're in the process. We know when the dates are of when the project will be completed. So now we can actually program the assistance for operating in the respective years now that we know when it's going to be starting.
Well, this is Mr. Rodriguez. Make a motion to approve.
I second. Jay seconds.
Okay. So there's a motion to approve from Alderman Rodriguez and a second from Jay Benashik. Is there any further questions or comments from board members? Okay, Marisol, are there any items? Is there anyone from the public signed up for these items?
Nobody from the public.
So this is for items D, E, and F. Under item number 2, are there any members of the TPB who oppose these items? Any abstentions? The items passed. Next item.
All right, next is item G. Reduce Category 5 congestion mitigation and air quality funding from the Park and Ride Far West project with limits from Loop 375 West Side to Desert Boulevard from $5,280,176 to $3,280,176 in fiscal year 2024.
And Chairman Perez, Greg McNichol, TxDOT is ready to speak to all these items, so I'm going to allow them to do that in the interest of time.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Item G is Sun Metro.
Oh, so, sorry about that.
Mr. Benashik, I don't know, did you have further comment on this item?
No, that just we actually reduced the project from $5 million to $3 million, and again, it's for just park and ride from the far west side of town going into town.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may, this Eduardo, the reduction in the budget on this one was very helpful. All of the changes and all of the programming that you see on Category 5 and CMAQ, whether it's the counties, rural transit, the Montana operating assistance, it took a lot of effort working together with the city of El Paso, with Sun Metro and TxDOT and all that, to make sure that we move the project according to the needs, but also to be able to fit them. So as you know, it's a complicated exercise where there's limited amounts of money, and as you all know, CMAQ, the pie got smaller because of the San Antonio effect. But we worked with the city of El Paso and Sun Metro very closely and TxDOT to make sure that we maintain the desires of the projects. So we're still maintaining the operating assistance for the Montana RTS, funding the county's rural transit, and keeping the projects whole. So I really appreciate the help of all the agencies in making this happen.
This is Mr. Rodriguez. Make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve by Alderman Rodriguez. For second.
Jay Benashik, second.
Second by Mr. Benashik. Is there any additional comment from TPB members on this item? Okay, Marisol, do we have any members of the public signed up for this item?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, who's speaking?
This is Representative Rivera. So are we taking from here on down, we're taking each one individually, or was it so that we continue as groups of 3?
I think it'll just depend.
G is separate.
Okay.
G is, thank you.
Okay. Marisol, no members of the public?
No members of the public.
Okay. Are there any members of the TPB who oppose this item? Any abstentions? Okay, the item passes. Next item.
All right, so items H, I, and J are TxDOT projects that they're different projects, but perhaps we can take them together in the interest of time. If that's okay with you, Mr. Chair?
Fine.
All right, so let's start with H, which is program the IH-20 widening project with limits from East Lake Boulevard to FM 1281 Horizon Boulevard in fiscal year 2021. Item I, reprogram the State Loop 375 interchange at Sergeant Major project with limits 1 mile north of Sergeant Major to 1 mile south of Sergeant Major from fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 21. And J, reprogram the Loop 375 Purple Heart widening and construction of frontage roads projects with limits from Spur 601 to US 62-180 Montana Avenue from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21. I understand that if there are any comments or questions, I believe Eddie Valtier from TxDOT is available to answer any questions.
Okay. Any members of the team questions on items H, I, or J? Marisol, do we have any members of the public signed up for this item?
No, no members.
This is Mr. Rodriguez. Alderman Rodriguez, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. There's a motion from Alderman Rodriguez to approve. Is there a second? Well, I do have Miss City Representative Lizarraga. Sorry, before we get to that motion, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yes, I'm trying to unmute my paper. I had a question for TxDOT. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
So
yes.
These are Category 7 funding, and so where was that money reprogrammed?
Okay, so item 8, which is the I-10 project, and I'm sorry, this is Eduardo. The I-10 project is programming Category 2, not Category 7. Now, for item I, which is the State Loop 375 interchange at Sergeant Major, yes, so that project, well, it's a long story, but it's also related to RMS 2020. One of the projects that TxDOT chose to push back are the direct connectors at Loop 375 at Spur 601 that had Category 2 and Category 7. That project was pushed back because now, in the coordination that TxDOT is having with Fort Bliss, it looks like the interchange at Sergeant Major, which is a couple miles north of 601, is a preferred project based on the realignment of exits or entry points to Fort Bliss. So the money that was in the direct connectors project was freed up, and if they only kept $5 million in this project at Sergeant Major, the rest went into the pool that allowed us to fund the projects for the local government in fiscal year 20. So again, this is all part of the RMS 2020 when we distributed the money. But to answer specifically your question, Representative Lizarraga, the money from this project, we're pulling out the Category 7 and replacing it with Category 2. And again, the Category 7 will be used for the local government projects.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo.
Hello, Eduardo. This is Eddie Valtier, Texas Department of Transportation.
Thanks, Eddie.
Go ahead, sir.
So I do have a correction on, I guess it's item H. So the $10 million should be category 11B, not district discretionary.
Oh,
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. So on item H, the $10 million should be category 11B, and then strike district discretionary. It's a different part of category 11.
okay, so we'll definitely make that correction. So I guess that is an amendment from the floor, Mr. Chair. So if we can take that on item 8.
Yes, I'll amend my motion to include the changes.
And I second the motion with the amendment.
Okay. Motion from Alderman Rodriguez and a second from State Representative Ortega. Sorry, I got a text, but it was from my mom, not from a member of the TPB. So, are there any other questions on this item from TPB members, or any additional comment? Okay, Marisol, do we have any members of the public signed up for this item?
No members.
Okay. Are there any members of the TPB that oppose this item? For these items, these would be for items H, I, and J.
Right.
Okay. Are there any abstentions? Okay. Items H, I, and J pass. Okay. On to item K.
Okay. So items K, L, and M are all TASA projects. So I believe we could also take them as group them, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay, which items, I'm sorry, are we grouping?
There would be K, L, and M.
Okay.
All right, so K, program the Tornillo South Sidewalks SUP project with limits of various city streets in fiscal year 2022. And due to clarification from TxDOT after the TPAC recommendation, the fiscal year for this project has changed from 2023 to 2022. Item L, program the Tornillo North Sidewalks project with limits of various city streets in fiscal year 2022. Due to clarification from TxDOT after the TPAC recommendation, the fiscal year for this project has changed from 2023 to 2022. M, program the El Paso Isleta Middle School Safe Routes to School project with limits from Jesuit Drive to Elvin Way in fiscal year 2022. If there are any questions, I believe TxDOT staff is ready to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments, members of the TPB?
This is Alderman Rene Rodriguez. Make a motion to approve.
Second. Representative Rivera.
All right. Motion to approve by Alderman Rodriguez, a second by City Representative Henry Rivera. Additional comment or questions? Okay, and Marisol, is there anyone from the public signed up to items K, L, and M?
No, members.
With the motion and the second, are there any members of the TPB who do not approve of items either L or M? Are there any items passed? Item N next.
Okay, so item N, program the Rojas Whitening Project with limits from Loop 375 Joe Battle to Bill Burnett to add $378,645 for a total of $6,628,645 of Category 10 Coordinated Border Infrastructure CBI funds in fiscal year 2021. The additional $378,645 is on top of the already approved $6,250,000 in the Regional Mobility Strategy RMS 2020.
Was someone going to speak on this item?
Mr. Chair, I can just provide a little background here. The Rojas project is also identified in RMS 2020, as you well know. It's a project that fits the requirements for CBI. So the clarification there is that when we presented the RMS 2020 to the board back in December, the information we had was that the balance of the CBI program was 6.25 million. So, but then in working with TxDOT and again going through reconciliation and all that, we found an additional 378,000. So MPO staff recommended adding that balance to the project, considering that it had already gone through the application process and the eligibility process with TxDOT and Federal Highway Administration. So, and again, the additional 378 would just clean up the balance of the CBI program.
With that said, Mr. Chair, Representative Rivera, motion to approve.
Second, I just want to have a quick comment, Chair.
Yes, sir.
When this was presented to the TPAC, I had an initial concern because it's CBI funding. I was just well aware of the situation, and this project had a shortfall, and I guess we want to make it whole so that it could be completed. So, that was the only issue that I had because of the CBI funding. But other than that, I mean, it's second. It's okay.
Okay, and Eduardo, do you want to speak to that as to why the staff recommendation is to add it to this project again versus just having a call for projects or anything? I know that.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. The dollar amount, $378,000 and change, is relatively small in terms of being able to put out or to find a project that would be eligible for CBI. And as you all know, the eligibility process starts with an application, and it would take a long time to do that. The Rojas project had already gone through the process and has been approved for CBI. There's a question of timing as well. All of this, would have taken a lot of time. And as you all know, and although we've never gotten in writing the guidance from TxDOT administration, they really want the CBI funds to be spent fairly quickly. So again, the Rojas project is already scheduled for fiscal year 21, and so we thought it was a good fit. Instead of going through a call for projects for a relatively small dollar amount of $378,000.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sam Rodriguez. I just want to correct for the record that the project's actually short about $1.5 million that the city is going to be making up that money through their match dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Are there any other questions or comments from TPB members on this item? So we have a motion from Councilman Henry Rivera and Alderman Rodriguez. Marisol, are there any members of the public signed up for this item?
There's no members signed up.
Okay, with that, are there any members of the TPB who oppose item N? Okay. Are there any abstentions? Okay, item N passes. On to item 3.
All right, so moving on to the next, discussion and action to approve recommendations from the Executive Committee. Item 3, amendment to Article 4 of the MPO bylaws regarding the location of posting for notices of meetings in New Mexico.
Okay, the Executive Committee met last Friday to discuss. This is really just more of a housekeeping item regarding Public Open Meetings Act and the notice of meetings. Sergio, do you want to go a little bit into it?
Sure. Several weeks ago, I think the MPO staff was contacted by the New Mexico Public Regulations Commission asking about why we'd been posting our notices of meeting on their website. They were just kind of curious. After looking into the matter and discussing it with MPO staff, it did kind of seem that was probably not the best place to be posting our notices due to the fact that regulatory commission doesn't really have anything to do with what the MPO addresses and policy planning. We reached out to Mr. Trent Doolittle, who offered to post our notices on the New Mexico Department of Transportation's website, District Number 1's website. And after reviewing both the Texas Open Meetings Act and the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, it's my opinion that that posting with the New Mexico Department of Transportation District 1 complies with all open meetings requirements of both states, and that it would probably be, seen or more likely to be seen by those who are actually interested in what the MPO does. Having made that determination, we then agreed that changes were needed to the bylaws, which specifically require that we state the notices with the New Mexico Public Regulations Commission. But then we should also take the opportunity, now that we're visiting this specific area, just to add some additional language that says that we will be posting all our notices with both the El Paso County Clerk and with the New Mexico Department of Transportation District 1, as reflected on the screen, but also, or in any other manner that complies with the Texas Open Meetings Act, just to give us some flexibility going forward in the future, in case some unforeseen circumstances arise, or in the event that we continue to be under disaster declarations and certain provisions of the Open Meetings Act are suspended. So it's legal's recommendation that we modify the bylaws as reflected on the screen.
Okay. Any questions or comments from TPB members? Was that a question? Or
Mr. Chair, with that said, Rep. Rivera, motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve from the Representative Rivera.
Alderman.
Is that a second from Alderman Rodriguez?
Yes.
Second from Alderman Rodriguez. Marisol, any members of the public signed up to speak?
No members signed up.
With that, are there any members of the TPB who oppose item 3?
Item 4, discussion and action to approve the Federal Transit Administration FDA Section 5310 Enhanced Ability of Seniors and Individuals Disability Program fiscal year 2016 project grant agreement between El Paso MPO and the City of Oro. Just as background, Mr. Chair and the board members, this is an old grant that the City of Socorro received from the MPO for the FTA 5310 program, but there was a small balance that was not spent, and in order for the City of Socorro to be able to use that small balance, a new agreement is needed. So this agreement is what we are bringing to the board. So again, this is a 2016 grant, and Brian, if you can scroll down, I believe that the dollar amount, the balance is $5,300 or something like that. It's a relatively small dollar amount, but instead of leaving it on the table, the city of, there it is.
Article 3.
Go up. Yeah, go up. There you go. $5,817. So the request is for you all to approve the agreement so that the city has access to that $5,817.
This is Mayor Trujillo. I first move.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was a motion to approve by Mayor Trujillo.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and a second by Alderman Rodriguez. Is there any other comment or questions from members of the TPB? Okay, Marisol, any members from the public?
Mr. Chairman, this is Art Fierro signing on, joining.
Okay. Welcome, Representative Fierro. Marisol, do we have any members of the public who signed up for this item?
No, ma'am. Yep.
Okay. With that, with the motion in a second, are there any members who do not approve of item 4? Are there any abstentions? Okay. Item 4 passes. On to reports, item 5.
All right, item 5, 30-day public involvement comment period for the amended Destino 2045 MCP, the 2021 to 2024 TIP, and the Transportation Conformity Report. I believe, Roger, you're on this one.
Thank you, Eduardo. Yes, we're in a 30-day public comment period for the amended Destino documents. It started on March the 29th. It'll run through April the 28th. We had a virtual public meeting last week on April the 8th. It was fairly well attended, and it went very well. We did receive some public comments. We'll be bringing these comments back to the policy board, and we'll be bringing the documents back for approval at the May meeting. It is, again, for the amended Destino documents. As you know, we've been working on these documents for several months. The requirement is to take the MTP and the TIP after policy board approval through the conformity process. So after the policy board approves in May, we'll be submitting to our federal partners for their review. And we're looking at about a 90-day turnaround and to get the conformity approved. So again, the closing of the public involvement is on April the 28th. It's still open for public comment, and it's on our webpage right now. There's a video that will direct the public through the process on how to submit comments, and it can be done through the webpage. You can it can also be submitted through email, and we also have a presence on Facebook and Twitter. So I would just like to say that the virtual public meeting went very well, and actually got a better turnout than we do when we usually go out and do physical meetings. So it's something we'll look at doing in the future for our public involvement too. So if there's no questions, that's all I have.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Representative Rivera.
Yes, sir. Are your online suggestions, are they the public having a good input through the online?
Yes, sir. If you go to our webpage and to the public involvement, there's a section there for public comment, and all 3 documents are available on the webpage. And the video that's also in that section will direct the public through the process on how to submit comments through the webpage.
I guess I didn't make it clear, but is the public participating really well on that site with their suggestions, or are you just getting minimal suggestions?
Well, I think we're getting a pretty good turnout. I haven't got a total count for you right now, but we'll be gathering up all of those comments and bringing them back through the policy board for your review. I think we're getting a better than usual, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, this is Eduardo again, just to emphasize that all the comments that we receive, whether it's through the website or those that we received during the virtual public meeting, we will prepare a report where we will show to you, to the board, how we respond to the comments. In some cases, some of the comments were not directly related to either the amended Destino plan or the TIP or the conformity report, but we still have to to, respond and document how we are responding. So we're going to bring back that report to you in the May TPB meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? This is just a discussion item under reports, so there's no action necessary.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So item number 6, the 2050 MTP. This is a status report, and I think Roger, you're on.
Thank you, Eduardo. Yes. Now to separate the last item from this one, this is the requirement for the update to the long-range transportation plan. We have until November of 2022 to finish this, and that includes the entire process, which is the development of the actual plan and to get the conformity determination. We're in a good place with this one, and the reason I say that is the current plan, the Destino 2045 MTP, was a lot tighter in its timeline. It took us 15 months to get that plan developed. We're looking at now with the timeline at about 22 months for the development of this plan. Internally, staff is going through the final review of the actual timeline before we submit that out to the public and to the policy board. And we're hoping that we'll be able to bring this item through for the next TPAC to look at the process and having a call for projects, which is early on in the development of the 2050 MTP. And it also involves the development of the guiding principles and goals and objectives. A big part of it is the needs assessment that needs to be done. It's a multimodal plan. We'll be looking at all the elements that are related to that, to include roadway, transit, and pedestrian and bike, safety, operations, and maintenance. And it has a public involvement process that we've used here before, where we have visioning meetings with the public. We'll be taking it out to get input from the public early in the stage, and we'll also be doing stakeholder interviews. Very valuable in getting that kind of input for the new plan. And then we'll be, of course, looking at the financial element of it and how that ties back to everything in the state of Texas and New Mexico and the future monies that will be available for that. It'll require a new conformity determination and an update to our TIP. The modeling for this that we're doing right now, we've started a new travel demand model development. That's a 2050 travel demand model. It'll run in parallel with the 2050 MTP development. So that timeline that we're looking at for the MTP and the TDM are closely related. So again, this is a new plan. It's not an amendment to the current plan. It is required in a non-attainment area that every 4 years we develop a new plan. So we're on track for that. Again, that will be completely done with conformity in November of 2022. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Chair, I have a question.
Sure. Alderman Rodriguez.
So this plan is in the process, but when can we start already putting in projects that any municipality wants to put in there?
Right now, we're going through the timeline internally. We're expecting that within the May timeframe. We were hoping maybe a little bit earlier, but I think probably in May. And we're looking at yes, all the entities will have an opportunity to submit to us project request forms. It'll be over a course of over 2 months, where we'll be going back and forth with all of the agencies to receive your projects and to make sure that we have your projects in order through that process, where you'll submit your project request form to us, and then we'll get back with you to make sure that everything is correct on your application and it is complete. And we'll make sure back and forth on eligibility and those kind of things. After we get your projects in, we'll be going through the process of prioritizing those projects. So that is early on in the process. So there will be ample time for the agencies to submit and for MPO to review those.
Thank you, Roger.
Sir, thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Eduardo. A couple of things. Yes, on the call for projects, our recommendation has been, and we'll say it again, start getting your projects ready so that when the call officially comes out, you guys already have a head start on that. Excuse me. The other thing, Roger, do you want to talk a little bit about the demographics and the Delphi process?
Sure. We're going through that process right now. It's actually already been through the travel demand model development. We've had a kickoff meeting, and we're working with the consultant right now in developing the demographics. There's many places where we have to gather that information on the Texas side and on the New Mexico side. And as we get a little bit further down the road here, we'll also kick off the Delphi process. The Delphi process is something that we've used here. I think it was back in 2014 or 2015 when we were in the Horizon MTP and travel demand model development. The Delphi process, we've gathered a list of about, I think right now going on 70 or 80 contacts that we're trying to reach out to and establish that those folks are still available. What we need actually is about half that many, about 40 of them that will sit on the Delphi committee. And it's very important that we get those kind of experts that understand the development patterns and what is going on in the region so that we can get that information inputted into the model so that when we do the demographics, we'll understand what kind of development is expected as we forecast out into the future. So in not too distant future from now, we'll be many of you will be contacted to, or perhaps someone from your agency will be contacted to be a part of that. We're also reaching out to developers and folks that are involved in the financial entities and real estate and that kind of thing that understand a lot about what we expect that's going to happen in the future here. So that Delphi process will be very valuable in understanding what we're looking at as we forecast our years of the network years and the TDM.
So what we're doing here is asking for everybody's help. As soon as your agency, your group receives the invitation for this, please help us and participate, because again, it is important to get the expertise on how the population and employment and all that is going to be distributed, throughout the region. That is the basis for the travel demand model. So it's going to be as good as the information that we collect from everybody, and going through the Delphi process, which is really, gathering consensus from experts. So again, we're asking for your help on that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from TPB members? Marisol, any public comment requests on this item?
No public comment.
All right, so then moving on to item 7. This is the virtual public involvement for Horizon Corridor Study for TxDOT.
This is Eddie Valtier, Texas Department of Transportation. Just a real quick brief on the study. So the study itself is the Horizon Corridor. It started on the actual virtual meeting started on March 25th and ended on April 10th, last Friday. The corridor itself that was studied is about 9.42 miles long. Stretches from State Highway 20, Alameda, all the way up to Ascension Street. So like Roger was saying, we actually had some pretty good luck on the virtual meeting. We had just some statistics here. We had 1,033 hits. We actually had a virtual sign-in sheet. We had 52 people sign in. We had 4 elected officials sign in. Comments were, we made it available to comment by on the website itself. We provided an email address, and then we also provided a specific phone line to call if you wanted a verbal comment, and we did receive about 18 and 20 comments, something around there.
I know, but what I'm saying,
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So I wanted to kind of explain where we're at. This is a feasibility level. So the corridor itself is just making some recommendations. From here, we go on, and different projects will be broken from this study, and hopefully funding will be available in future years. But each project will still have to go through NEPA process, federal requirements, state requirements. So by no means is this a final deal. Every part of that corridor will still have plenty of opportunity for comments as the process continues. So with that, if there's any questions.
Mr. Chair, this is Eduardo. The one significant thing about this quarter study too is that, as Eddie just mentioned, projects are identified and then they go into the process. Well, one of the projects that was identified in the quarter, which is the intersection with Darrington, that intersection project became part of the North Darrington project that is part of RMS 2020. So that intersection between Darrington and Horizon Boulevard will be developed as part of the RMS 2020 project along Darrington. So it's a really cool way of combining the TxDOT study with the project that the town of Horizon submitted as a priority. So that was a really cool way of putting everything together.
Okay. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Eddie. Okay. Any further additional questions or comments from the TPB members? So any members of the public signed up for this item?
No members signed up.
With that, we can move on to item 8.
All right. Item 8, Mobility Summit with the City of El Paso. Not sure who is there to provide the update, if Yvette Hernandez is on the line.
yes, good morning, TPB. As was last reported, the Mobility Summit, it's 4 years in the making. All the locations have been in the Trinity Triangle of East Texas. So we were successful at getting the bid, bringing them out to West Texas to see all the great things that El Paso's doing, and COVID hit. So I've been on the call with them, I've been in conversation, and the feedback that we're getting from the other cities, much like that's happening here in the city of El Paso, is budgets are being reduced. Travel is the first that many of the cities have looked at. So there is potential that even though it's determined to have it in September, there's still potential that financially a lot of the cities will not be able to attend and have the ability to travel out here. So we're regrouping. We're looking potentially to host virtually. My request to the organization would be once it's allowed and the conference actually takes shape at a physical location, that El Paso is still in consideration to be the next host. So the silver lining is we won't have to pay for travel and hotel for many of the speakers. So we really want to focus on getting nationally recognized speakers at this conference. Maybe we can do that now since we're not paying for their travel expense. But that's the update for now. We'll keep the MPO and update it as items change. But I still want to make a push for having a physical conference here in El Paso. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the TPP? Marisol,
No, sorry. No comment.
Okay, with that, we can move on to item 9.
Okay, item number 9 is demonstration of replica with the city of El Paso.
Hi, good morning. This is Alex Huffman with the City of El Paso and CID. So what we wanted to do today is just to go over a transportation model that recently the City Council approved a contract award for. The name of the model is Replica, and Replica is a Google company that uses data from a variety of sources to help build a transportation model showing where people move. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, what Replica is it's a fully anonymized data model. And what it can do is using different data sources, essentially show where people have gone in the past, allows for municipalities to do scenario planning and then make decisions into the future using real-time data. Next slide, please. And so generally speaking, the types of questions that Replica can answer are showing things like where people move, when people move, so time of day, day of week, those types of things, seasonal changes, how they move. So it shows the modal split. So again, that would be showing people who travel by car, people by foot, through mass transit, and then through alternative means of movement using mass transit. And then it also will show what they spend their money on. So one of the interesting things is because it's a Google company, they actually have access to transaction data. So one of the things that it can be important is to show some of the financial impacts that transportation projects have. And so this model does provide those insights. Next question, or next slide, please. So just skipping over these were just how it shows where it aligns with a city strategic plan. So we can skip these. But generally speaking, yes, it does comply with the city strategic plan. And this again is just showing, some of the departments that, can help show how the data can assist. So we were looking at being able to answer questions for some of our departments like international bridges, because it can pull data from across the border, some metro with some of the route planning, those types of things. And then also in economic development to those questions, because again, we can show how some of the projects that we have and the siting of those projects can have economic benefits as well. Next slide, please. And so, as I mentioned, City Council did approve the award. The contract award was for 3 years, and the cost was $170,000, which for a transportation model is really affordable, especially when you consider, as I'll get into here, that through this model, we're actually receiving 4 data refreshes throughout the year. So we're getting historical data going back 6 quarters, and then every quarter we're getting a new model for the past few months. The way that the price is derived is that it's based on a per resident cost. And so that's why our model is costing what it does. Next slide, please. And so what this slide is showing is, generally speaking, how a transportation model is developed. So typically it's based on paper surveys. You hire the consultants, they do all the data collection and calibrate the model. And then by the time you get the model is already outdated. And so what this is trying to do is come up with a different approach to help data stay fresh and to give insights to help municipalities best plan for their future. Next slide, please. And so, as I mentioned, this does provide, a better way to do it. And I'll get into how they do that here in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. So this is, generally speaking, the model interface. Our partners will be able to access the city's model. This is showing Kansas City. But what it does is, as I mentioned, it provides 4 quarterly updates. It will show the modal split. So again, we could show, people who travel by car or by transit. It shows where they're moving. So if you notice some of the bar charts on the left-hand side, some of the things that it's showing is the time of day that they're moving around the city. It will show, where they're coming from, but it also will give you demographic information such as household income. It will also be able to answer questions as to why. So saying, are they coming there for work? And are they traveling to a store, for example, or are they going home? And the way that they're able to do that is by capturing some of the cell phone data. They can see where they're staying, during the work hours. So that's how they determine where they're working. And then overnight hours is how they're determining where they're stayed at home. And then, like I mentioned, it also will provide demographic insights, providing some of the details of who the users of the GPS data are. Next slide, please. And so the way that they're getting this information is through a number of different sources. So it's not just based on anonymized GPS data. It's also using some of the consumer and resident data. So getting insights into who lives in certain neighborhoods will help them to develop a demographic profile, using land use and real estate data, and then again, bringing in the credit card transaction, and then finally using the ground truth data. One of the great things is that we're not just getting this standard model. One of the great things, but also one of the challenges that we'll have moving forward is that they're actually going to be building this model specific to El Paso. And so it's going to take a little bit of time. They've given us about a 2-month lead time that they need to actually develop this model. But the good thing is that it's going to be very specific to our region. Next slide, please. And so again, using these different data sources, what they do is they develop anonymized profiles that are representative of the community. So the idea is that's not necessarily going to be a one-to-one match. So they won't know that it's my GPS data, for example, or me as an individual, but they'll come up with a representative profile of someone like me who lives in the neighborhood that I, live in and where I work. And then they use this to essentially simulate and calibrate specifically to El Paso. And then we are able to then get those different models, if you will. One of the other benefits is that, with the upcoming census, we'll actually have really fresh data, which will give us a more accurate profile of our region. Next slide, please. And so one of the other benefits of this model is not only are we getting access to our own data, but we actually get access to all the other communities who have used this model as well. And it allows for us to compare ourselves to see, if there's a particular project that we want to see, how it impacted a particular region, we can get those insights as well. We have access to all of their data. And so some of the places that have already contracted with Replica are, as I mentioned, Kansas City, the entire state of New York, Chicago. They also just recently entered into a contract with the whole state of Illinois. And then they also have the Bay Area. And so I think they're in about over 100 communities. So one of the other benefits is that we'll be able to compare ourselves against some of these communities that they have their data available to as well. Next slide. And so, as I mentioned, really what the benefit of this tool is that it tells us, what's happening today and in the immediate past. When we get the model, we'll get the last 6 quarters and then the current quarter. This allows for us to do things like scenario planning. And so then based on those different scenarios and what those outcomes are, then we can pilot and see whether or not the data does show that to be true, and then implement it as a permanent strategy. Next slide, please. And so just to give an insight in terms of how that would work, you can have, on the left, your standard route, and then you could see how on the right, how changing it, what types of impacts it will have. So that's looking at things like trips per day, the share of trips on that corridor, the vehicle miles traveled, and then what it does to the consumer spending. And so again, this gives us, insights that we don't have right now, really showing everything from economic impacts to, again, how it affects transportation models. So you see on the left-hand side some of the questions that the scenario planning can help answer, or things that are listed there. But really, one of the things is that if the groups on this call are interested in becoming a partner, I had our initial call with Replica with the team yesterday. So they're very curious to know, like, what types of questions or issues are we looking to solve? And then they can help build the model to help answer those questions. So again, it's very specific to the region. And so these are just some of the things that it can do. But really, knowing what types of issues that we're looking to address that can help them develop a model that's best suited for our region. Next slide, please. And so just to give some insights into some of the economic data that it can do, again, so showing things like how much are people spending locally each week. It can break it down into the different categories of spending. So looking at the breakdowns like mortgage and rent, dining, groceries, really breaking the transactions down into the generally speaking, different categories. And then again, it maps those things too. So what you get through this model is the interface, but then also the raw data. So again, if you want to use these as data inputs to specific studies or models that you have on your own, this can be another input source. Next slide, please. And again, this is just showing some other things that it can do. So showing the breakdown of modal split, showing those breakdowns by ages, and then also by income. And so again, it will allow you to map those results within the interface. It will allow you to generate reports, generate the raw data, and use in other studies and documents. Next slide. And so there's a short video. I don't know if that group is interested in seeing, but really it talks about a lot of things I've already covered. If not, I'd be happy to answer any questions that
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple comments if I can add.
Yes, sir.
This is Sam Rodriguez, city engineer. So one of the things that we really looked at this model when we pushed ahead and get this going, we were faced with the task of updating our master thoroughfare plan as well as our comp plan here since it's already 10 years old. And so we really saw this as a great opportunity to get a model. And when it was presented as a product that will be ideal for a region to most of their customers are at the MPO level in other states and other regions of the country. And so that's the reason we're making this presentation to the board today, to really hopefully get partners into the cost sharing aspect of this model. Because I think as we've seen before, and more importantly, as we see the shortfall on cash, the data is really going to help us drive solutions and where we allocate resources moving forward. And so it's really important for us here at the city to make sure that we have data such as what was presented here today. And we have a great opportunity to partner and create a regional model for us as a community to be able to capture the data and really make us more competitive. As you saw here in the recent build grant opportunities at the federal level or even at the state level, being able to share and have accurate as more information as we can provide, they'll definitely help us make a better case to capture more resources for the region, and then also locally allow us to make better decisions for the amount of money that we do get.
Chair.
Alderman?
This is for Sam Rodriguez. So this whole plan, is it for countywide or just the city of El Paso?
So we've contracted because like I stated, we needed to move forward to provide the data to update our MTP, but we are making it available for the whole region and being able to enter into local agreements and have everybody pay their fair share. Alex, if you can let us know the amount per resident, and it's intended to be a regional model, Alderman Rodriguez. So it's intended to cover all the towns and county and everybody that is within the area.
Yes,
it's a good plan.
Sam, just to answer your question, the cost per resident was 20 cents.
Thank you. That's good information to know.
So we'll be reaching out to individual government entities. We have a draft interlocal agreement that we'd like to pursue with all different agencies, and hopefully everybody's on board to participate. I think when you look at what Roger talked about earlier related to the 2050 plan and start to develop the travel demand model, this is really good base data that's going to support and validate some of the information that we're going to get out of that process as well. Are there any other questions, Mr. Chairman?
This is Representative Lizarraga. I wanted to see the video if that's possible. Is it very long?
It's not very long. I'm just not certain since this was saved as a PDF. It was embedded in the actual presentation. So I'm not sure if it's able to be pulled up.
Representative Lizarraga, what we can do through Eduardo, we'll send the link. It's a quick YouTube video, and we'll send the link through Eduardo to the full board so that everybody gets an opportunity to see the video. And then it's just a quick YouTube link that we'll send out.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Mr. Chair, this is Eduardo. Yeah, we saw the presentation some weeks ago, and we're very interested in really seeing what Replica can do and how this Replica can improve our own travel demand model. I mean, like any model, this one has some restrictions, some limitations, but at the same time, it provides a lot more new type of information, like the fact that like Sam, or the presentation showed, the level of detail, basically looking at combining transactions with the actual data coming from cell phones, and all that is amazing. As part of the development of the new travel demand model, we are using location-based data, LBS, which is also based on cell phone data. And so, there's a lot of new technology, a lot of new stuff that is now being made available so that we can improve on our travel demand model. I think one of the things that that I'm not sure, Sam or Alex, about Replica is that are you guys looking at also at cross-border movement? I'm not sure
Yes.
if the contract or they have the ability to do that.
Yeah, so what they are, this is Alex. So what they are able to do is that they wouldn't necessarily be building a model for Juarez, for example, but what they would be able to do is once that traffic crosses our border, they are able to capture that. That was one of the key questions that we had when they initially came in. They've worked, started doing work in San Diego. And so that was already something that they're building into their model. And we told them that was really critical, especially to capture some of the economic data, some of the spending. And so they are incorporating that into the model, but it will be specifically for the movements within El Paso and not once cross back.
And we're talking about travel demand model, but the other, I think, great benefit that I see out of this program and this model as well is the scenario planning that Alex, and I think it's worth repeating for everybody. When you have projects, such as we have here on I-10 and some of the major TxDOT work that we have, being able to develop traffic control plans and detour plans through this model is going to be a really great tool for us to make sure that we're tracking and that we're seeing where the traffic. In certain cases, we delineate a detour route that sometimes doesn't really pan out, and you'll be able to validate that through this model as well to see where the traffic moves, and also overlay the traffic accidents that are within our region as well. To be able to overlay that within this model is going to be a great opportunity for us as well.
This is Tommy Gonzalez. So the only thing that I would add that I think bears emphasizing is that this is a great way where people can get or cities can get a very economical product by paying their fair share at 20 cents per resident. It's a pretty ingenious way for all of us to work together and be able to get a good product that helps all of us individually as entities and then also collectively as a region.
All right. I just got a text message from Chairman Perez that he was booted out of the WebEx. He's trying to get back in, but given that we don't have any action items, or Sergio, I'm going to look at you to you for guidance here. Can we just continue the meeting, or I don't know if Mayor Margot is still on, take over as vice chair?
Hi, Eduardo. This is Sergio. That's fine. As long as we continue to have a quorum of the body present. Okay. And Mayor Margot can certainly take over the meeting. Furthermore, Eduardo, just to let you know, let's double check and make sure that the upcoming presentations are viewable from the website as well. Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. So then let's move on then to item number 10, the executive director report. I included a couple of items here. The report on the two tax committees. That committee, at that meeting, the committee reviewed a couple of studies that TxDOT is doing, very heavy on truck parking. So there was one study that was done at the state level, and again, identifying that truck parking is a major issue, not just in the urban areas, but also in the rural areas. Thinking of all the stuff that moves throughout the state by truck. So interesting conclusions. As we all know, there are issues both in the urban areas and in the rural areas. We typically see 18-wheelers parked on the side of the freeways, of the roads, but it's a real issue. For many of us, we see that as a nuisance, but 18-wheelers, they need to deliver their goods, and so the whole issue of truck parking is interesting to see and try to resolve. Now, the second part, which is the truck parking on I-10, that is more interesting to us in the sense that this is a study that is ongoing, but it's being supported by the Coalition of Western States for I-10. This is California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, who have an informal coalition. More interesting for us, or to us in El Paso, because of course we know that I-10 is our lifeline, right? And when it comes to the movement of freight, everything that is moved by truck that comes into the state of Texas goes through El Paso. So to create the awareness that just like I-35 is a very important corridor north-south for the state, well, so is I-10 east-west. And so we want to use this opportunity, these studies, and get more involved with the Coalition of Western States for I-10 to get more involved as an MPO to promote the corridor at the state level and create that awareness of how important this corridor is to the state. So you're going to be hearing a lot more from the MPO and asking you all to get involved in these activities. But again, this coalition of Western states, I think, is very, very important for you all to be aware of. If anybody has any comments or questions about that one before I move to BTAC. Okay. Let me move now to the BTAC meeting that was actually held yesterday. And I really appreciate the participation of many of you that were there yesterday. I know that the state reps, Lino Ortega and Cesar Blanco were there. I don't remember if Senator Rodriguez, you attended, but Mayor Margo and County Judge Samaniego were still there. I mean, we also attended and participated in the panel. So BTAC is a committee that is made up of the border regions, and it's specifically addressing trade issues. So from El Paso, there are 5 members that are official members of this committee, which include representing the county, John Varela representing the Borderplex Alliance, and myself as the executive director of the MPO. So there was a lot of really good discussion, but the initial panel was sort of like a round table talking about the impacts of COVID-19 that it has had on the border communities, on cross-border trade, and so on. So not getting into a lot of the details, but a shout out to David Coronado. He provided a presentation of the situation happening with the bridges, and the movement coming northbound and southbound. And I think it was a lot of people really got impressed with the level of detail of the information that David presented. And the second part of the meeting was really to talk more about the border master plan, the Texas-Mexico border master plan. The consultant team that TxDOT has, engaged the committee and discussions on where we're going and all that. So, I don't want to get into a lot of details here, but perhaps later we can bring TxDOT or have TxDOT give us an update. I know that there is one of the steering committees for the border master plan. There's a meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks. Some of you may have already received an invitation for that. So again, as always, I ask for your participation. It's important for us to show up and speak up and make sure that El Paso's concerns are very well documented. So with that, unless you all have any questions, that's all I have for my director's report.
Eduardo, this is Art Fierro.
Yes, sir.
Could you share with the group the presentation that David Coronado presented yesterday? It was really some fascinating numbers and we all need to be aware of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And too bad that the BTEC was yesterday, but I thought that maybe David can come and provide a short presentation to the policy board, because I think it's important to showcase, the impact that this is having on us. Mm-hmm. So,
and Mayor Marco,
I'll ask David, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to share the presentation.
Okay. Eduardo, I have a follow-up question for you.
Sure.
Just coming back to that I-10 corridor coalition, you mentioned it's informal. How do we formalize, make that coalition formal, and how do we take a leadership role? Can you research that for us? And how do what kind of who the memberships are, and how do we take a leadership role from the El Paso region on this coalition, so that we just don't become a member, and we actually lead the discussions on that coalition?
Yeah. So, well, when I say informal, it's a little more formal than informal. So there was actually an MOU that was signed, a memorandum of understanding between the executive directors of the 4 state DOTs. In other words, California with Caltrans, Arizona DOT, New Mexico DOT, and TxDOT. That MOU was signed, I believe, in 2016 or 2017. The last action they had, I believe, was in 2018. So yeah, I mean, there's an MOU, but there really hasn't been a lot of activity. So we really want to make a push for that. Starting with the truck parking study along I-10 that is currently being engaged, and I should say that TxDOT taking the lead. Initially, Arizona DOT was sort of like, leading the effort of the coalition, but I don't think they were getting very far. So TxDOT decided to take more of the lead. So they are engaging in this truck parking study along I-10. But I will definitely, it is one of the things I intend to do, research more and find a way to get more involved in this coalition so that it's not just us in Texas, but all the other states are interested. It should have an interest in making sure that I-10 gets a lot of attention.
And just another comment, City Manager Mr. Gonzalez has directed us to start looking into, all the various cities and counties that are on the I-10 corridor, to look at it even from the local level. And I'm glad there's already something set up at the state level. But if we can work closely with you, Eduardo, maybe, kind of work through the MPOs and getting the support of the cities along the I-10 corridor would also make sense that would pursue that process as well.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And, we're already looking at that because, clearly we have an interest in I-10, but certainly, San Antonio and Houston also depend on I-10, for their transportation and more importantly for trade. It is very important for them to bring them on board.
Eduardo?
Yes.
I'd like to add to what Sam was saying as far as what I have assigned them to do, just for the interest of everyone who's listening. Different coalitions exist throughout the nation. I was part of one in the 90s and early 2000s for the I-27 section of it, and we were able to form a coalition. And by doing so, a lot of times people think, well, we want our own things for us. But what you end up doing is you end up getting stronger with having the numbers. And obviously, we're going to go after the things we need for our respective regions. But as an example, that coalition, which was, obviously a lot smaller than our region, but we were able to get $260 million and a national corridor designation, and it's still in existence right now. Now, it's not as big as the I-35 coalition, but what it can do is, we can have, strength in numbers with, as Sam pointed out, ourselves, Houston, San Antonios of the world, and obviously they have their needs. We have ours as well. So when we go, we kind of carry a bigger stick, if you will. So you also have all the different cities that can participate in funding, whether that's for an executive director of the coalition, or whether that's for consultants that we may want to hire, or if we want to do feasibility studies, or if we want to do advocacy efforts. Typically what these coalitions look like is that they're a 501c6, not a C3. And the difference between a 3 and a 6 is that they can lobby. That's the main difference. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with the group. And the reason why we're getting the list, I've asked the staff to get a list of all the cities and get their populations so that we can put together a semblance of a budget and then have everyone pay their fair share. And then we all advocate for the same thing. And for those that might be thinking, well, how can we all get on the same page? The way that big corridors do it is come up with general areas that everyone can agree to, like more funding for I-10. Obviously, everybody can agree to that. Bridge maintenance along I-10. Again, everyone can agree to that. So you can come up with big general things that you can have everyone agree to, but that you can still lobby or advocate for your respective regions and your specific projects that you want along the corridor.
All right. No, definitely. We'll take that into consideration. And as we get more involved and find out where this coalition is, the existing coalition between the four DOTs, and see how we can make it grow to, but your idea is very well taken. So with that, I'm not sure if Chairman Perez, are you back on? Oh. Chairman Perez, I think you're muted, but I think we're done with the reports.
Okay. That takes Eduardo, I'm sorry, and I don't know. Last meeting we discussed about the letter that she had written up with the that she had presented to the EC.
Right. So the letter that we're talking about is something that the MPO would submit, or the authority that the UL gave me as executive director to submit a comment related to the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 20 UTP, which is all about the I-35 project in Austin. So I drafted a letter. I presented it to the executive committee. I got some feedback, and I'm in the process of tweaking that letter just to make sure that it addresses some of the comments. And I'll be happy to share it. Mr. Chair, if you think it's appropriate, I can distribute that letter as soon as we're done. Or do you have a different idea? Mr. Chair, I don't know if we lost him again.
Eduardo, this is Walter Miller. I think that it would be very appropriate once that you complete your draft, or not your draft, but complete your letter, to send it out for the board, so at least we know how we responded to, or what the content is, in case we are approached by others. But yeah, as you said, we discussed what the content of the letter and the tone of the letter, and I think it was a very good effort, and I think it adequately reflects our position. And sure, I think you could share that with the rest of the board.
All right. Mr. Chair, I see that you're back, but I think you're muted again.
If Marisol has, there you go. I don't know if Marisol has control over that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, I think just emailing it to everybody is fine.
Okay. All right. So be on the lookout for an email from me with the version of the letter, the latest version.
Okay. And so that was
with
the last
that, I
item.
think we're done with the item number 10, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that, the only item left is adjournment. The next regular meeting of the TPB is scheduled for 9 a.m. on May 22nd, 2020. And then the due date for submittal of agenda items, names of speakers, attachments, and items for presentations and project request forms is due no later than May 12th, 2020 at 3 p.m. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second by Alderman Rodriguez.
Okay. There's and the initial motion was by City Representative Rivera?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Are there any members of the TPB who do not approve of this item? Okay. Any abstentions? The meeting is adjourned. You all be safe. Thank you to everybody again for your ongoing efforts with the ongoing pandemic. We appreciate your leadership and all your service. Okay. Thank you to staff as well.
Thank you very much, everybody.